So today I want to talk about something called spiritual pain or spiritual hurt. It's often a kind of pain that we don't talk that much about because it can be kind of hard to pinpoint. But it has a huge impact, can have a huge impact on many aspects of our lives. Psychologically, physically, there's a feedback loop with physical pain and mental emotional pain. And we might not be aware of what component of that is spiritual pain or spiritual hurt. And so we're going to talk about what causes it, where it comes from, what the source of it is, how to heal spiritual pain, and more. So before we get there though, I'm Dr. J from the BioSoul Integration Center here in Louisville, Colorado, and I help professional part-time healers and mystics, closet shamans, people for whatever reason feel called to embody their soul's gifts and their soul's essence so that they can share those gifts on the planet, for better or for worse, people who feel called. And I've been helping people do that for the last 20 years here at my office in Louisville, Colorado, but I also do online work with people, so check me out online if you're somewhere else in the world, or if you're in the area, Denver, Boulder area here in Louisville, and get some hands-on work. Please like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You might find this on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest. You can also find the BioSoul Integration podcast wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. This will go into an audio form. And then I've written a book called If It Didn't Hurt, How to Resolve Your Pain and Discover Your Life Purpose. And it is kind of the ultimate guide to spiritual pain. Every kind of pain. And I go deeper into spiritual pain in that book. And so you can get that at my website, biosoulintegration.com, and there's an opportunity there to get the first chapter for free if you want to check it out, or you can buy it there. So let's get into it here. You know, everyone's sort of familiar with physical pain, right? There's, back pain, neck pain, headaches that happen, and those are kind of just the physical sensations in our body that tell us that some part of our body is hurting. We often don't realize how those things are tied into emotional pain, though. And so emotional pain also can be called social pain, mental emotional pain, psychological pain. And it has often something to do with, a sense of inadequacy or situations in our lives that we deem unsatisfactory, like a job or relationships. Emotions and stories come to the surface that cause emotional pain, psychological pain, social pain. And then there is spiritual pain, and spiritual pain also could be called existential pain or soul pain. And really what that's about is feeling a lack of our ability to know who we are and why we're here, and a lack of ability to sort of express that onto the planet here and share our gifts, to be able to embody our soul's gifts and our soul's essence and share those things. So that's really what soul pain is. And the cause of soul pain is really that we're not embodying the source within. We're not embodying our soul's essence, our soul's gifts, or some degree of not embodying our soul's gifts and our soul's essence, and not being able to connect with the source within. And in that sort of vein of not being able to embody that signal, that part of ourselves, the source, the part of us that's connected to source, our soul's gifts, our soul's essence. There are certain parts of our body that kind of house different aspects of our being that are kind of important. Well, they're all important as far as spiritual pain goes, because it's really, about our being able to express our wholeness. But there's a couple areas in particular. The sacrum is really, it connects us with the part of us that knows who we are and why we're here. And so if we're not able to feel that or express that, we might feel disconnected. We might feel lost. We might not feel like a connection with life. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Who am I and what am I supposed to be doing here? And then the bottom of the neck sort of connects us with the part of us that knows what feels true and right in any given moment, so that we can say yes when we mean yes and no when we mean no. Express ourselves in alignment, in an aligned way. It's about expression. It also connects us to passion. It connects us to sort of like a soul knowing. It connects us to what kind of like lights us up. And that's your soul saying, you know, come this way, this way. This is what you're excited about. This is what lights you up. It's kind of a bandwidth of energy, that kind of a soul knowing, if you will. And if we can't connect with the part of us that knows who we are and why we're here, and connect with our passion, connect with what lights us up and express that, then it can result in spiritual pain. Again, we just sort of get disconnected from who we are and why we're here, and we're not able to sort of meet life. Life wants us to be able to meet it with our gifts, show up with our gifts. And if we just kind of don't have a sense of what that is, we feel lost. We feel disconnected from ourselves, from life. We feel disconnected from our purpose. And again, that stuff can feed back into mental, emotional pain. Certainly, if you can't connect with who if you feel like you're not connected to your purpose, if you're lost and not connected to who you are and why you're here, you can see why depression or anxiety or anger or things like that could be an issue. Mental, emotional, things like that. And again, those are connected to physical pain as well, to a degree that I think people often underestimate. So what else? And when we pinch those parts of our bodies off, we pinch that energy off in our bodies. We use our posture, we use tension to sort of pinch off the bottom of our neck and pinch off that energy in our sacrum. Again, we have trouble sort of connecting with that. And the way that happens in our lives, basically we need to ask, what are things that sort of disconnect us from source within us? What are things that disconnect us from our soul's essence? And there are a few of those things. First of all, it happens by entraining to the people around us while we're in the womb and until we're about 7 years old or so. It happens as a result of trauma. It happens as a result of medication. Medication can have that effect, and also recreational substances could not be beneficial in connecting us with our soul's gifts and our soul's essence, disconnecting us from source. So I'm going to talk about a few of those things. So first of all, again, the part of our nervous system that's online when we're in the womb is this part that's just sort of feeling out into our environment. It's feeling into the energetic back office of the people around us, and it's interested in our survival, and it knows that we have to fit in with the people around us to survive. And so we feel into how they're doing themselves. What's their relationship with love and fear? What's their relationship with their purpose? What's their relationship with power? These things that humans deal with. What's their relationship with pain? And certainly we pick up on some of their finer points, but we also pick up on the ways that their system says, okay, that's not safe to feel, that's not safe to look at. And so we adopt those patterns ourselves, and we end up fragmenting ourselves and pushing certain parts of ourselves away, including parts of us that know who we are and why we're here, the parts of us that know what feels true and right, our connection to awe and our connection to passion and our connection to what lights us up and our capacity to sort of express that. So that can have an effect on that. And that part of our nervous system is on running the show until we're about 7 years old. And so that can happen just by entraining to feeling into the energetic back office of the people around us, and we pick up those patterns. Then, of course, trauma, stuff that happens to us after we're born, can also have an effect. And I would say the major effect happens in the womb and when up to about age 7 as a result of entraining to our environment. But then trauma can kind of, just solidify the things that have already started. we maybe, we have a sense of this doesn't feel right, but maybe there's some abuse, or maybe something happens to us and we have a sense this doesn't feel right, but we're a kid, we're a child, and no one seems to be acknowledging that fact. And so we just assume there's something wrong with us. We assume that there's something wrong with our sense, that there's some way that this doesn't feel right. And so we don't have the capacity to say no. And so again, we disconnect from some part of this part of ourselves and assume it's wrong. And there's a physical manifestation of that. We wall parts of ourselves off with tension. We use our posture, etc. So, also, it could be overt trauma, overt abuse, or it could be just subtle stuff that we pick up from our families, we just maybe have the sense of who we are and why we're here, and we tend to express that as a kid, but we get the sense maybe, oh, you're too much, or whatever, like, oh, that way that you're expressing, that's just, that doesn't fit within our adult paradigm, and we get the sense of that, and so we're like, oh, I feel that, and maybe we, disconnect then from the part of us that knows who we are and why we're here, and we pinch that off. So that's kind of the fundamental way that happens. Also, medication. Medications are mind-altering substances, and we might take medication at different times, say, like, mood-altering substances like antidepressants. They have the effect of taking the edge off of emotions, intense emotions that maybe are deemed problematic in our lives. But the problem with that is that emotions sort of exist on a continuum in a field, and so if we kind of pinch off one end of the emotional field, if we pinch off the grief or anger or things like that, shame or whatever that are dark emotions that are causing us trouble, it also pinches off, kind of dims down our capacity to experience and express joy and love and awe and passion and things like that. And so that's why, things like antidepressants, other mood-altering medications like that can be helpful potentially in the short term. If someone is if it helps people sort of get back on their feet and get moving in life again, if they are maybe in danger of hurting themselves or others, certainly medications are useful, but they're usually not a very good long-term strategy, because for one thing, your body, just like any drug, any medication, your body gets used to it and builds up a tolerance to it, and then you need more of that, or you need a different medication to get the same effect. And all the time, there are certain parts of us that are trying to be expressed through our bodies, and those medications kind of dim that down. And so there are other problems that can show up related to that, and one of them being that ultimately it disconnects us from awe, it disconnects us from passion, it disconnects us from our sense of knowing what feels true and right, who we are and why we're here, and expressing that. And then likewise, recreational substances are also mood-altering substances that can have effect on our capacity to connect with the source within and express our soul's gifts and our soul's essence. Alcohol and marijuana are both nervous system depressants. And, I have a personal experience with alcohol, for instance. There was a time in my life where I was suddenly experiencing these boils in my fingers, certain fingers, and joints would swell up. Joints of my feet would start to swell up. And when I started paying attention, I noticed that alcohol was related. There were certain times when I would just feel like drinking a few, 3 stiff beers and getting a good buzz going. And then when I paid closer attention, I noticed that there was anger or sort of some frustration related to when I wanted to drink. And I noticed that there was this kind of like energy that rising up from my liver, and about the time that it would get here, I would start to feel agitated, angry, frustrated, and that was uncomfortable. And if I drank 3 strong beers, it would kind of like tamp that energy down. But about 2 weeks later, I'd get these blisters, these boils in my fingers. My joints and my feet would swell up, and it was causing like permanent damage. And so I tried to negotiate with alcohol. Like maybe it's a different kind of alcohol, maybe it's gluten-free alcohol, maybe it's cleaner alcohol, maybe it's whiskey, maybe it's white wine, maybe it's vodka, whatever. But in the end, it just ended up being alcohol. And so I quit drinking, and those physical issues went away. But then what happened was I had to deal then with the energy that was rising up, this anger, this frustration. And upon integrating that more, it sort of coincided with a time in my life when I took more responsibility for, again, connecting with my gifts and expressing them. It's about that time that I kind of formed this technique that I have developed, BioSoul integration. It's around that time that I wrote a book. So there were some things that came to the surface about me sort of, again, expressing my soul's gifts and my soul's essence and sharing those gifts to a greater degree, that stopping drinking helped me achieve that I wouldn't have achieved otherwise, because it was tamping down this energy that seemed to be important for that. Likewise, marijuana, cannabis, I have some experience with that as well. And I would just say that my experience of that is that, these sort of emotion of anger, frustration, it's really important where giving our soul's gifts is concerned. It's really important where spiritual pain is concerned, because it's the leading edge of the energy that gives us the oomph to sort of like reclaim our power. And my experience is that marijuana also kind of dims that down, is a way in which it disconnects us from that yang sort of energy. And I'll just say that. And also noticed good positive changes in my life when I stopped doing that. So that kind of covers some of the I think the major causes, the things that cause spiritual pain. It's things that we entrain to while we're in the womb into about age 7, trauma, medications, and recreational substances. So that leaves us with kind of like how to turn this around, how to embody that soul signal, how to embody our soul's gifts and our soul's essence, how to connect with the source within and heal spiritual pain. And so there are a few factors that are super important in that regard. It has to be something, we're talking about embodying, embodying our spiritual gifts and our spiritual essence, embodying the source within and expressing it. So it's got to involve our body. We got to connect with our body. When our nervous system goes into defense, when we form those survival patterns that I talked about in the womb, part of that is awareness gets sort of drained away from a part of our body. And so we're not occupying our body, because we learn that connecting with that part of ourselves is unsafe. And so we kind of like go limp around that, and we're not occupying, we're not connecting with, we don't have an awareness of that part of that energy in our bodies, and so we're not embodying that part of ourselves. So we got to connect with the body. The second thing is breath is really important. Breath, when our system goes into defense, we wall things off with tension, and we use our posture to keep it still, because if you move it, you have to experience that energy in your body. And if you breathe into it and you move it, you have to experience it. So what happens is our body shuts breath down to certain areas, and it walls things off with muscle tension, so that we can't be aware of that aspect of our being, because it was deemed unsafe. So breath is really important. And then awareness, things that you do to increase your awareness. So, which means just paying closer attention to the sensations in your body. That's just kind of a big one. Paying closer attention to the sensations, your experience of your body. Kind of like strengthening that muscle. Again, when our system goes into defense, we sort of like push, our awareness kind of like goes limp. And it's sort of like about strengthening, re-strengthening that muscle of being able to pay attention to what's happening in our body, and especially the sensations in our body. And so, you know, there are things that you can do to help you do that. I mean, a simple one is just walking. Just go walking. Pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to how your body feels when you're walking. You might start to notice yourself getting lost in thought. Come back to your body. Notice the sensations in your body. And certainly there are other things, more organized things that you can do, like yoga, for instance, where you can, you know, or what's that technique called? Alexander technique. You know, there are certain sort of like organized things that you can do. And then there are, you know, professionals that can help you embody your soul's gifts and your soul's essence. There are, you know, somatic psychotherapists. There are body-centered psychotherapists, people who do sometimes EMDR, or more body-oriented. There's something that I've integrated into the online work that I do, which is called brain spotting, and that's really centered around the body. There's things called somatic experiencing. Different forms of chiropractic, different forms of Rolfing, maybe acupuncture. You know, these are things, and you know, it's nice if you connect with the person and have a sense that they're really body-centered, body-oriented. Network chiropractic in particular, that's the foundation for the work. That's the foundation for the work that I do here, the hands-on work that I do in my office. Network chiropractic is a really body-centered, body-oriented, awareness-oriented form of holistic chiropractic. And so really I suggest that. And then BioSoul integration, that's the work that the term that I've coined for the work that I do here, which is a combination of network chiropractic, a combination of brain spotting, infused with awareness and awareness practices. It's kind of a short way to say it. And so those are things that we can do to heal spiritual pain, connect with our soul's essence, connect with our soul's gifts, and be able to express them. The other thing that I want to tell people about is that, you know, I think people often have this idea that healing just means that things are going to go away, that they're not going to have to go through anything to get to the place they want to get. You're not going to have to go through anything to heal spiritual pain. You're just going to be able to find the person or the thing that's just going to magically make it go away so that you can experience bliss. And it doesn't work like that. You have to, in order to embody parts of yourself that you've pushed away, we have to go through the process of welcoming those parts into the whole of us, and we have to integrate those parts, welcome them and integrate them and process the energy, all of the built up energy that goes along with having pushed those parts away. And so I want to say a little bit about what spiritual pain, what it looks like when we heal spiritual pain. And so often, especially with this area at the bottom of the neck, as there's all this energy piled up there that we haven't been able to look at, and as that starts to process, as we start to digest that, often there's some form of heat, whether that's just heat in the body, inflammation. Often when there's women of a certain age, it triggers hot flashes. It's kind of an aside, but I think menopause is, you know, it's like there are all these developmental stages that happen in our lives. We got to put together a certain amount of dots to walk and to talk. And menopause is one of those developmental stages. It's where life is going to be asking us to work on a different project. We're going from sort of having kids to sharing our wisdom with the tribe. In order to share your wisdom with the tribe, you got to be connected with the part of you that knows who you are and why you're here. You got to be connected with the part of you that knows what feels true and right, and be able to express that. And I think, and at times when, there are times during those developmental stages when life and our bodies will sort of draw these things out of us. Life says, okay, it's time for us to digest this energy. And one of the ways that shows up is as heat in the body when we're sort of moving through that. Could be inflammation, hot flashes, fever when we get sick. Could be a fever. But certainly emotionally, anger. You know what? emotion is kind of related to heat, hot under the collar, you know, like anger. We will experience anger. And usually, and anger again is kind of the leading edge of the energy that gives us the oomph to reclaim our power, to draw new boundaries, we're as opposed to turning against a part of ourselves, we are getting on the same, you know, saying, oh, this part of me is not valid, this part of me is not worthy. We're getting on the same page of those parts. And we're like, hey, no, this part of me has value. There's wisdom in this part of me. And so we start to be able to gain that. Anger gives us the oomph to sort of like, you know, plant a flag where we're advocating for those parts of ourselves that we've pushed away. And usually, you know, there's a lot of grief stored in the upper lungs. And so as we sort of digest and unpack this up here, under that anger, there's usually some grief. And then it's kind of like polarity is kind of a big thing. When we start to heal, you know, there's ways that we were separated. We've separated ourselves from other parts. And so there's this polarity that gets created in us, and we have to sort of experience that polarity on the healing journey. And that polarity, there's a physical structure to that, especially to the bottom of the neck here. You know, on this end, it's sort of related to the curve. The curve in our spine transitions here, and it transitions at the bottom of our, the bottom here, where that curve goes from our thoracic spine into our lumbar spine. So there's kind of two parts to unraveling that. When we start to unravel the anger, and you know, regain our capacity to express parts of and honor parts of ourselves that haven't been honored, we start to feel the other end of that, which is shame and guilt. And so on the way to healing spiritual pain, on the way to integrating the energy that's been bound in your system that was deemed unsafe, the parts of your, you know, again, your soul's essence, the source within you, that flavor of energy in us, that signal and energy in us, we learned that wasn't safe to feel. On the road, we pushed that away, pinched it off. There's all this energy piled up in our body, that's life and our bodies are conspiring together to get us to feel and process so that we can live our purpose on the planet. On the way to getting there, when you're digesting all that bound up energy, you're going to experience heat, you're going to experience anger, you're going to experience grief, you're going to experience shame. And we have to sort of welcome all of those things into our heart. That's why awareness is the key, because when we're going through those crises that go along with that, our mind is going to get hijacked, and our mind is very much connected to our ego and the survival self that's been, you know, keeping us safe all along, that was doing a job, but it will hijack our mind and convince us not to do this stuff, not to keep going, you know. That's its job. Its job is to kind of maintain the status quo. Our mind's job is to kind of maintain the status quo, and we are kind of blowing that out of the water when we do this kind of work. So awareness is important because we want to have the capacity to stay present with our experience without getting hijacked by it, without letting it squirt into without believing the thoughts so much. I hope you've liked this video. Please, again, like it, share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my book, If It Didn't Hurt, at BioSoulIntegration.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I look forward to helping you express more life. Have a great day.